Um, Jazzy, can you be the one to record this? Because I just tried to record and it wouldn't let me claim the host. So I think that's you.
Yes, it is currently recording. We're good to go.
Awesome. All right. Well, let's go ahead and get started. Um, Welcome. Happy Friday, everyone. Happy week 6 out of 9 for the Design to Run training program. For those of you who don't know me, my name is Brittany Steers. I'm the program manager of the Exosat Autodesk Fitness program. I also do triathlons. So this nutrition webinar is very near and dear to my heart. And has really been a hot topic in my circles lately. So hopefully I can give you all some takeaways that you can apply in your next run and maybe to your daily nutrition as well. So we're going to be talking about all aspects of nutrition today. So that's hydration, pre-run, post-run, and your entire daily diet, because that's the foundation of your whole nutrition plan. And you're only spending a couple hours a day working out, maybe a couple hours a day, maybe less, where your daily diet is the rest of it. So we want to make sure that's on point as well. So if you do have questions, please put them into the chat. Jazzy is going to be moderating it, and we'll have time for to answer some questions at the end of this presentation. So, make sure you drop it in there so that you don't forget, and we look forward to having a good discussion. I will say the one thing we are not going to be talking about today is any kind of fad diet or trendy diet. I usually get lots of questions. What do I think about X diet? And my answer almost always is unless you are doing that diet for ethical, religious, or medical purposes, then it might not be the best choice for you. Usually, a lot of these diets include cutting out major food groups. And if you're not doing so for ethical, medical, or religious reasons, it's probably not going to enhance your performance or your health. And that is very general, universal statement, certainly not always applicable, but that's probably going to be my answer. So let's kick it off with starting about hydration. Seems like a simple topic on the surface, but always one we want to touch on. So we want to always make sure that we're getting enough water in our day, especially when we're adding a heavy training load on top of that. And one of the easiest ways we can get some more water in our diet is by starting our day with a glass of water. Maybe first thing after you go to the bathroom in the morning, have that glass of water just ready to go so you can reach for it. Have it while you're making breakfast, while the coffee pot is going or the kettle is brewing. That's a really good way to start your day off on the right foot. And we can't completely avoid dehydration. It's just part of training and racing and living, really. But we can reduce our hydration by limiting the amount of really sugary drinks that we're consuming, like sports drinks, unless we're in the middle of working out, especially a long workout. But I'm talking like sodas, energy drinks, things like that. And we also want to think about replacing electrolytes, especially if you live in a hot environment, a hot, dry environment, especially. You might notice you're a salty sweater, and sodium is one of those electrolytes. So when we're talking about electrolytes, that's a word that's thrown around a lot. What does it actually mean? Electrolytes are minerals that, or molecules, I should say, that help your neurons transmit that signal to your muscles, and they help your muscles contract. So in general purposes, we're talking about sodium, potassium, chloride, and then calcium to some extent. But sodium, to keep it simple, sodium and potassium are what we're usually looking to replace. So if you need to take some electrolyte tablets or powder in your water, if you notice you're a really salty sweater, that might be a good option for you. And then a very general rule of thumb is to drink 1/2 to 1 ounce of water per 1 pound of body weight. So we'll take a 120-pound person, and the math is pretty easy. So drink 60 to 120 ounces of water per day. You're definitely going to be on the higher end of that range if you're working out a lot, and if you live somewhere that's pretty hot. And then as you're working out, that's probably going to require even more water than this base requirement. So if you're doing a longer workout, you want to take a few gulps every 15 or 30 minutes. If you're doing a shorter workout, you can probably get away with not hydrating during your workout, but you want to make sure to compensate before and after your workouts with plenty of water. Another part of hydration is caffeine, and that's a fun topic. It's been really well studied, and it is the world's best legal performing enhancing drug. So if you like your tea, if you like your coffee, you know, keep it up. I will say that caffeine is very personal, and if you don't like caffeine, you don't like the way it makes you feel, if it gives you stomach problems, if it gives you anxiety, I'm not saying that you should start a caffeine habit. But if you already have one, it might not necessarily be a bad thing. So, benefits of caffeine include mental focus, physical performance. It can lift your mood, especially if you're in a longer race, not 5K or 10K, but something longer, and you're going through a bad period. You can get some caffeine and it can perk your mood up again, which can help with performance. It can, as we all know, it helps with fatigue resistance. That's why we drink it in the morning. It can also help with your GI system, so your gastrointestinal system, so digestion. So a lot of runners like to have caffeine or espresso first thing in the morning because it gets things moving, which can be a good thing in terms of performance and prevent discomfort and other issues and distress. I'll say it again though, caffeine is personal. So coffee, tea, energy drinks, to some degree, caffeine pills, they're all going to have pretty much the same effect in terms of the caffeine stimulant. Pick the one that works best for you. And once again, I don't want anyone saying, Coach Brittany told me I need to start drinking caffeine. Not saying that here. I'm saying if you already have a good thing going, keep it going. But if you don't like it, no need to experiment. Pre-run nutrition. I get a lot of questions about this in the weekly consultations, so it's worth touching upon. I'm going to talk about this from a breakfast perspective, but these examples of meals can be translated to any time of the day. I will say that if you are working out after work or during lunch, make sure you're paying extra attention to your hydration because it's pretty easy to let that slide throughout the day when things get busy. But regardless of if you're working out before work, after work, late at night, you do want to have some kind of fuel in the tank when you go out to run. So try and put something in your stomach 30 to 120 minutes before the workout. And we want to focus on carbohydrates and a little bit of protein. So carbohydrates are our fuel source. It's sugar. It's going to bring energy to our bodies, and then protein is going to help with feeling satiated, especially if you're more towards the hour and a half, 2 hour mark of fueling before your workout. And that protein is also going to help prevent muscle breakdown to some extent and muscle damage. But we want to keep fats and fiber to a minimum. So fats and fiber are great usually in our daily diet, but they slow digestion down, which once again is usually a good thing. But when we're consuming our pre-run nutrition, we actually want to digest that food pretty quickly. And so by removing the fat and fiber, we're going to digest that food that's in our stomach much quicker. It's going to get into our system faster and actually fuel us rather than just sitting there like a heavy brick. So make sure to pay attention to your fat and fiber intake. And a few examples of ways to fuel pre-run. Once again, this is skewed towards breakfast, but we can start with a banana or half a bar and some coffee. That's that's a great early morning snack. We can have peanut butter toast. So peanut butter is a significant fat source. So make sure if you are using peanut butter that you keep the portions in check. Once again, we don't want that just sitting in our stomach. And oatmeal is a great option, though I will say an important caveat about oatmeal is that it does have a lot of fiber. So this might be a really good option if you're going on a long bicycle ride or a hike or an easy run. I don't recommend oatmeal before you're going to go out and do a hard run, just because the fiber intake means it's going to sit there a little bit longer than you want, especially if you're going at high intensity. But for those low, long, slow days where your heart rate's low, this could be a really good option. Mid-run nutrition. So I know this topic is probably going to come up in the chat, so I wanted to touch on it. It's probably not necessary in this program. So we're training for 5Ks and 10Ks. So for most people, that's going to be an hour and a half or less of a race. And most of our workouts are also going to be an hour and a half or less, probably significantly less in a lot of cases. So we don't really need to worry about goos or gels or chomps or anything like that. And for sessions under 45 minutes, you definitely don't need any kind of fuel during your run. It's really when we get to the hour, 2 hour mark, especially if you're going to be going longer than that, where we need to start thinking about consuming some calories. So some gels, some jelly beans, things like that, that are quick shots of sugar to get into our system and keep us going. And if you are consuming gels or solids of any kind, make sure to consume with water. And make sure to train your stomach. So that's not just something you can go and do one day. Start with little bits and get used to it. Like I said, this is probably not going to apply to most people who are watching this, but I know it's going to come up. I get lots of questions about it. So it's really over the hour and a half mark that you need to start thinking about eating during your runs. Post-run nutrition. So other than our daily nutrition, post-run nutrition is probably the most important topic of the day, because our purpose with this is to stop tissue damage and to facilitate regeneration and recovery of our muscles, our body, and our minds. So here are some quick guidelines for refueling, and we're trying to keep it as simple as possible on this slide. So we want to refuel within 15 to 60 minutes of training. And some people don't feel quite ready to eat, especially after a hard workout, and that's okay. So maybe you're refueling closer to the 60-minute mark rather than the 15-minute mark. Listen to your stomach. It'll let you know what it can handle and what it can't. And we want to consume foods or drinks with a 3-to-1 carb to protein ratio. So once again, carbs are our fuel source. They're sugar. It's in our muscles and our bloodstream and our liver as well. And we want to replenish what we've taken out. And then we want some proteins that are going to help rebuild our muscles and our soft tissue that got broken down or stressed when we were running. And then we, of course, want to hydrate, and we want to hydrate with water, not beer. That's another common question. Very popular thing in running and biking culture is to go get a beer, but we want to make sure we have water first. So, general rule of thumb is 20 to 24 ounces of fluid per pound of body weight lost. If that's too scientific for you and you're like, I don't know what that number would be at all, drink to thirst. So have that bottle, finish that bottle, have a glass ready for you when you get home, and finish that before you move on to the next thing. The most important part is getting some water back in your body after you worked hard and sweated. And some examples of foods that have this protein ratio include oatmeal with milk and nuts, eggs, toast, and fruit, a turkey sandwich. You can do a protein shake. A mocha is actually a really good protein or a recovery drink if you're out and about and have nothing with you. So, getting protein and carbs from the milk, a little extra sugar from the chocolate, and then the caffeine can actually help with recovery as well in the espresso and the chocolate. Daily diet. So, like I said, this is the foundation for everything that you're doing. And we want to focus on a couple key points with our daily diet. So, we want to create an even spread, and that's going to make a little bit more sense in the next slide that I'm on. And we want to build balanced meals. So, we want to have our portion sizes proportionally balanced. Once again, I'm going to touch on that. And we also want to have enough carbs and protein and fats and produce, fruits and veggies. That's very important. And then, probably the most important thing is to plan ahead. So, that can be taking a couple minutes on a Sunday or another day where there's a lighter load and planning for the rest of the week. Or if that's too far, maybe planning the next day or a few days out. That's also going to make grocery shopping a lot easier as well and a lot cheaper because you know exactly what you want to buy. And that way you won't have to rely on expensive takeout dinners or lunches all the time. That's a nice treat, but we don't want to we don't want to be relying on that for most of our meals. So when I'm talking about building our meals, we want to think about the main components. So we've got proteins, carbs, fats, and then vegetables and fruits. So when we're talking about proteins, we say that at Exos that proteins help build. So they're going to help build our lean muscle mass. And when we're thinking protein sources, we usually say the less legs, the better, meaning leaner protein sources, starting with plant proteins like beans and lentils and seafood, then going up to poultry, which has two legs like turkey and chicken, and then maybe red meats are a little less often, such as pork, debatably red meat with pork, but beef and lamb and those type of sources. So we want to make sure that we have some kind of protein source at each meal and each snack. And then we want to talk about carbs. I've talked about carbs quite a bit, but they're a primary source for fuel in the brain and for high intensity activities. And for how much we need, it's going to depend on our activity level. Since we are running and in a running program, you are going to need more carbs than somebody who is completely sedentary, but we don't need to overcompensate and go crazy. So we're talking about things like rice and oatmeal, quinoa, corn tortillas, things like that. And fats are for protection. Fats are necessary in our diet, and they go through periods like carbs where they're demonized and then praised. But they contain powerful nutrients and antioxidants, and they're going to help provide protection in our joints and our soft tissues. It's also going to help regulate hormonal health. So we want to make sure that we're getting enough fat in our diet, but not too much. And then, of course, fruits and vegetables, it can't be overstated how important they are. They're in our prevent category. They have vitamins, minerals, antioxidants, enzymes, fiber, and it's just going to help us maintain immune function, maximize our focus, and optimize our ability to produce energy. So we want to think about eating as many colors of fruits and veggies as we can in a meal, in a snack. Not only does it look beautiful and taste good, it's going to provide maximum benefit. So let's create the right combination of meals, and I'm going to take you through my brain as I'm building a meal after a workout. So this is a lot of information, so I'm going to break it down, and I'm going to talk you through each piece of this. So let's start with carbohydrates. I finished my run. What do I want to eat? I'm from Southern California. I want to eat tacos. So we have a whole list of examples, and we'll send you printouts with some of these examples on here that have all kinds of things. So on this list, I'm going to choose a whole wheat tortilla because why not? And then what kind of protein do I want in my taco? I'm a sucker for breakfast tacos, so let's put some eggs in there. And that's going to be my protein. And then, of course, we have to have some kind of veggie in our meal. And salsa counts. It's tomato based, it has some onions, some cilantro in there. So, salsa is going to be my vegetable of choice. And then we got to have a fat source, not too much, but a little. It's going to make everything taste good in addition to all the nutrition benefits. So I was torn between avocado and guacamole, but I have those avocados in my pantry that are going to go bad. So that's going to be my fat source. And then, of course, we have to have some fruit because we're maximizing our produce. So I grabbed some fruit salad. I always have the cut up fruit from Safeway. That's like $5. So it's right there. I don't have to cut anything up. I can just throw it on my plate. And that's as easy as it can be to build a meal. So we have a breakfast taco with eggs, salsa, and a side of fruit salad. And that is actually something I eat after I go for a run or bike ride. All right, last topic for today, and then we'll get to some of those questions that I know are in the chat. How much should I eat? And once again, this is going to be on some of the materials that we'll put on the Slack channel, but we want an unlimited serving of veggies. So start with that on your plate first. Put as much as you can on your plate. Once again, the more colors, the better. Protein sources. So everything on here you'll notice is in proportion to your hand, which is in proportion to your body. So in general, our protein size is going to be the palm of our hand. And then the other question I get is, well, how tall should it be? And it should be probably about half an inch thick. We're not talking a filet mignon that fits in the palm of your hand and is 4 inches thick. That's not a serving size. And then with our carbs, we want them to be about the size of our fist. With fats, we want them to be about the size of our thumb. And yes, this is a serving of peanut butter. That much. It's tragic. It's not fair. And then with our fruits, we want them to be about the size of a tennis ball or a lacrosse ball. So if you have a lacrosse ball for trigger point purposes, that's a good reference point. And that's about the size of a medium banana or apple, somewhere in there. So once again, with that, the more colors, the better. So that was a lot of material we covered. I know, hopefully it's just the basics, but Jazzy, are there any good questions in the chat?
Yeah, so one question is about what if you run first thing in the morning?
Good question. So we kind of touched on that in the pre-run slides. So you definitely want something in your stomach, some water, caffeine's a good option, and then keep it small. You know, you might have to train your stomach, and some people just get really sick first thing in the morning, and if that's you, don't eat. But if you can get a banana or a half a bar or something like that, you're just going to feel so much better than if you do it on an empty stomach. Any other questions?
What about this next question is what can you give more details on electrolytes, maybe some brands or types of things like that?
Yes. So like I said, electrolytes are molecules in your body that help your neurons conduct and your muscles contract. So usually we're talking about sodium, potassium, and chloride. To keep it easy. If you are looking at electrolyte tablets, Nuun, N-U-U-N, is a great brand. There's lots of good brands out there. And I'm thinking of ones that are not sports drinks, but specifically electrolyte tablets. We didn't even touch sports drinks today. That's a topic for another day, but Nuun is usually my go-to. All right, what's next?
Follow up on the electrolytes. Can we make them from the ingredients at home as well?
So I'm probably probably the easiest way to get electrolytes from ingredients at home is to add a little sprinkle of salt to your water. That's going to be the easiest way. There's no easy, simple solution for potassium. So your water should not be salty if you're doing that. It should just be like a little pinch. You shouldn't be able to taste it at all. And that's really pertains to the people who don't already get much sodium in your diet, which if you're eating only whole foods and you're not actively adding salt to your food, that could be a good option. But if you're eating lots of stuff out of the box in the can, because salt's a preservative, you probably don't need to do that in your daily nutrition.
Hey, Brittany. Next question from Paul. Does coconut water count for electrolytes?
Yes, it does. If you like coconut water, it had its moment of being in style, and then it seems to have disappeared. But it's a fantastic source of electrolytes. So if you like it, that's a great option. Any other questions? These are great ones. Okay, well, if you do have more questions, ask away on Slack. If you have a question, that means probably a lot of other people do as well. So we're happy to share. All of us on the Exos team love chatting about nutrition. So it is 1:30 on the dot. We will let you all go. Thank you so much for joining us today. I know it's a Friday. If you haven't put your full name in the chat box, please make sure to do so that we can give you credit. And we have our third and final webinar coming up in a couple weeks with Jazzy on race strategy tips and tricks. So be sure to look out for that one. Thanks,
Brittany,
everyone. Have a great weekend.
I was going to say one more thing before we go. We got one last minute question from Christian. Yeah, I hope I said that name right. Is too much coffee a bad thing? And this is actually a really good question. So I'll let you take it away then.
Yes, too much coffee is a bad thing. You will know if you're over caffeinated. So if you're getting the jitters, anxiety, having GI distress, like your stomach's turning upside down, you can't focus. Yeah, too much caffeine is not a fun thing. Caffeine is a drug. So as far as dosage goes, start small and build up from there. Cool. All right. Any other questions? Make sure to put them on the Slack channel because we are over time. So I want to be respectful of everyone's time, but those were great ones. So thank you so much, everyone. And we will talk to you all soon.
Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.